everybody. Today our team want to talk about willingness to communicate and second language learning. Willingness to communicate, WTC, in a second language, as generally defined by many scholars and researchers, is learners' propensity to initiate and continue communication. Since WTC plays a major role in L2 learning, there have been many studies carried out to investigate the relation between those two. So today, we want to share what we have read in articles about WTC and L2 and further pose educational implications. Afterwards, I want to give you general ideas on what are the factors affecting WTC and how English as foreign learner teachers can draw pedagogical implications. Considering the need to examine learners in situational L2 WTC, some scholars conducted a qualitative study investigating 32 English as foreign learners' participations of the factors affecting their in-class WTC. In this study, participants selected for semi-structured interviews aged from 18 to 24 years old. After analyzing the data collected through criterion sampling methods, scholars demonstrated that learners in class L2 WTC were affected by a few factors, including classmates, instructional methods, teacher, atmosphere, materials, class size, L2 motivation, fear of being ridiculed, L2 anxiety, fear of making mistakes, topic interest, topic familiarity, introversion, vocabulary, and so on. According to them, learners tend to have more WTC when their classmates are at their level. Also, if teachers are supportive and the atmosphere of classroom is relaxing, they are more willing to communicate. Furthermore, they figure out that factors like L2 motivation and vocabulary are positively related to WTC, while factors like class size, introversion, L2 anxiety are negatively correlated to WTC. Also, in recent years, L2 motivational self-system has become influential in both second and foreign language learning. However, previous studies mainly put emphasis on individual traits. Consequently, some scholars conducted studies to take external factors into consideration. They collected data through a three-party construct: ideal L2 self, auto L2 self, and WTC. As its name implies, ideal L2 self refers to one's future self-image with regard to L2, while auto L2 self is influenced by external factors such as family, friends, and society. A quantitative study was carried out among 105 university students in Turkey, and descriptive statistics were employed to analyze the data generated. Accordingly, the study indicates that there is a significant relationship between ideal L2 self and L2 WTC. While the relationship between L2 L2 self and L2 WTC is not significant. Furthermore, the authors pose that L2 L2 self could be more influential on younger learners as well as learners from a more collectivist society like China. This study offers us a clue on how L2 motivation self-system is correlated to L2 WTC. Next, I want to talk about something relatively new: video web communication with WTC. CMC, that is computer-mediated communication, has become increasingly popular over the last 2 decades in language education for making learning more efficient. As a type of CMC, video web communication, that is VC, is very complex for allowing audio, video, and document sharing at the same time. Since it is assumed that WTC has been shown to be a significant predictor of L2 language skills, the scholars conducted a research to examine the effects that VC can have on L2 learners' WTC. 36 students and 35 pre-service teachers participate in a quasi-experimental study. Participants completed self-report questionnaires weekly on their attitudes toward interacting with native speakers through VC. Data generated was analyzed by means of regression analysis. This study shows that communication with native speakers through VC can promote learners' WTC in learning another language and thus improving their study. It further proved that VC is at least one of the practical and powerful tools to facilitate WTC. And this study gives L2 learners, especially beginners, a hint that it could be a good way to make use of VC because it is more efficient and practical to communicate with native speakers online.
In my part, I'm going to talk about the elements that affect learners' willingness to communicate in second language acquisition. Based on the 5 articles, there were internal factors and external factors affecting learners' willingness to communicate. I will focus on internal factors and my colleague will introduce external factors later on. The internal factors are learners' anxiety, personalities, personal interest, and attitude toward second language learning. The following slide is about the negative effects of learner anxiety or willingness to communicate in second language acquisition. The more anxiety a learner feels when communicating, the less willing he or she will be to use a second language. Language anxiety can cause psychological barriers when learning a second language. For example, although a learner may be reading simple material in their second language, he or she may have difficulty understanding the meaning because his or her consciousness think that it is difficult. Also, learners may have less confidence when they are anxious about learning a second language. In this situation, the learning process also causes discomfort experienced by learner and results in a low level of willingness to communicate. Therefore, anxious learners are slower to master second language proficiency, especially regarding outputs such as speaking. Secondly, learners' personality and attitude toward learning a second language are 2 other important elements of willingness to communicate. Because learning a second language is an interactive process involving speakers, materials, and learners, they do not learn by themselves. If a person is outgoing, he or she may be more willing to communicate with foreigners in the learning process and more easily achieve the desired goal of language learning. Attitude is another internal factor that influences second language learner efforts toward learning. A learner who possesses a positive attitude is more likely to be a successful language learner. A positive attitude may motivate learners to interact with native speakers, which in turn increases the amount of input that learners receive. The concept of interest is believed to play a predominant role in learning and educational achievement. Swart and Lemon define interest as a liking and willful engagement in a cognitive activity, and argue that interest manifests itself in several ways, including active engagement, focusing on one's attentional resources, and learning more than one would otherwise learn. Moreover, Heidi argues that interests play a critical role in students' motivation and learning, and students who have a higher level of interest enjoy their learning, persist more, and tend to have a higher level of concentration. Interest is a multidimensional construct consisting of 3 dimensions: meaningfulness, impact, and competence. Meaningfulness refers to the perceived value of a task. The more meaningful a task is to students, the harder they will try to complete it. Impact, on the other hand, refers to students' perceived role in class procedures and participations. If students feel they have an important role in class procedures, they will be more motivated and involved. Finally, competence signifies students' evaluation of their knowledge and competence. The more competent students feel, the more interested and engaged they will be. This is all my parts, and the above elements are internal factors that influence learners' willingness to communicate in second language acquisition.
Hello everyone, here comes my part, which is mainly about how some extrinsic factors take effect on students' willingness to communicate and finally influences the second language learning. The first extrinsic factor I would like to introduce is the willingness to communicate with the instructors. Since at class, we can always find some students who are more willing to communicate with the teachers, while some others are not that interested. Does this difference exert any effects on students' willingness to communicate? The answer is yes. As reviewed by research, the nature of communication established between teachers and students can influence students' learning, motivation, interest, empowerment, and involvement. According to the literature, the students tend to have 5 categories of motives to communicate with their teachers. The first one is relational motive, that is to know about the teacher's character and to start a friendly and personal relation with him or her. The second one is functional motive, such as to get information about the course and its requirements. The third one is participatory motive, that is to participate in classroom activities and tasks. The fourth is excuse-making motives. For instance, the motive to describe why the assignments are late. The last one is syncophantic motive, which means trying to leave good impressions on the teacher. As indicated by the results, among the 5 motives, excuse-making motive is the only one that negatively contributes to the learner's willingness to communicate and speaking, because this motive can make learners less active in the communication process of the classroom. By contrast, functional, participatory, and syncophantic motives make students active participants in the communicative process and report higher attainments. Therefore, how to stimulate students' positive motive deserves much attention of the educators. The research reveals if the students perceive their classmates and the class climate supportive and find the teachers accessible, flexible, and competent, they will communicate with the teachers for the relational, functional, participatory, and syncophantic motives. This will in turn enhance their performance in the classroom, facilitate involvement with learning tasks, and improve educational achievement. Since learning is both affective and cognitive in nature, teachers need to employ both socio-affective and pedagogic strategies to enrich classroom interaction and to aid learning. To start, let's look at their definitions. Socio-affective strategies refers to a set of emotional and instructional strategies used to facilitate and accelerate the process of teaching and learning through tackling students' emotions. Pedagogic strategies are defined as the knowledge of both handling specific language items and knowledge about techniques and procedures which facilitate learning. Now, I would like to present how these 2 strategies influence willingness to communicate and language learning from 2 main aspects, the facilitating factors and the hindering factors. First, teachers can make efforts to construct positive relationships with students, including 3 key elements: immediacy, fairness, and teachers' enthusiasm. The second facilitating factor is to establish a friendly and supportive atmosphere in the classroom. This can be achieved by specially designed arrangements in order to promote cooperation and mutual help between students. Another significant contributor is teachers' choice of topics at class. To boost students' willingness to communicate, the topics need to be familiar to students and also closely related to their personal interest, life, and experience. Thus, students can be more willing to talk and share, and also gradually build confidence in the process of communication. Furthermore, the topics should involve cultural aspects of English and authentic situations as well. The last factor is teaching styles. 3 strategies are suggested for teachers to utilize. The first one is teachers' cognitive adaptability, which refers to the ability of teachers to express themselves in a language or in a way that can be easily understood by the students. The second one is error correction. Its principal purpose, especially in the oral interaction, is not to interrupt the flow of speech. Also, learners' mistakes had better be corrected indirectly. Our learners are encouraged to correct themselves. In terms of the third one, challenging activities, teacher can ask referential questions rather than display questions to trigger more complex and longer responses from the students. However, a strong enemy to willingness to communicate is teacher-centered class. In this case, teachers tend to dominate the class, while the students are likely to adopt more passive roles, awaiting to be spoon-fed instead of actively thinking or performing. Also, the design of some classes does not involve group activities, which reduces the students' chances to cooperate with their peers while learning. Another barrier comes from the institutional expectation. Complaints are often heard about the intensive syllabus they have to follow, which they believe affect communication patterns in the class, and also teachers' freedom to encourage more interaction. Additionally, the book materials sometimes do not apply to students' real life or their interest.
Baby.